Have you ever wondered how to capture breathtaking close-up images of wildlife, distant landscapes, or objects in the sky? Brace yourself for an exciting journey into the world of spotting scope photography. You might be surprised at what this spotting scope can see. With these tips, you'll be able to harness the full potential of your spotting scope equipment. Spotting scope basics. Spotting scopes with a variable zoom will list three numbers. The first two are the range of magnification, in this case 20 to 60 times normal human sight. The third number is the diameter in millimeters of the objective lens, which is the lens at the large end of the scope. A lens hood keeps the sun from producing a glare on the objective lens. There's also a pair of ridges on this hood, which I'll get to in a minute. Turning this knob will adjust the focus. Some models have a 2-speed adjustment knob or one that has a variable speed, both of which help fine-tune the focus. Extend the eye cup when you want to look through the scope with the naked eye. Retract the eye cup when you want to attach a camera or if you wear eyeglasses. Variable zoom scopes will have a ring that you rotate to change the zoom factor. The mounting collar on the scope has a thumb screw that can be loosened and then the scope can be rotated. This can bring the viewing end of the scope into a more comfortable position or change the orientation of the image if you are digiscoping. The ridges on the lens hood help position the scope on the target. Do this by rotating the hood until the ridges are lined up with the thumb screw and look down the length of the scope. A stable tripod is a must. The tripod doesn't have to be anything expensive, but you'll see here shortly why a stable tripod is important. The best way to take photos or videos through the scope is to pair your phone to it using an adapter. I'm using the smartphone adapter that came with this scope. Before we begin, make sure the camera lens is clean as well as the lenses on the scope. Then, simply slip the phone into the holder, making sure the phone clamp doesn't squeeze any side buttons. Line up the hole with the camera lens you're going to use. In this case, I'll be using the 1x lens. The 2x lens will give you a larger image, but there's a problem with it on this phone. More on that in a bit. The round clamp uses a 3-way mechanism that squeezes the eye cup. Decide whether you want the pictures or videos to be taken portrait or landscape. Make sure the adapter is attached firmly and seated completely. If the phone is crooked, the image won't be very good. If the image looks like this, then you'll need to either rotate the phone in the mount or realign the camera with the hole. Most phone adapters will work with or without a phone case. However, with this adapter, a really thick case might show some dark corners when using the 1x lens. I mentioned earlier having trouble with the 2x camera on this phone. If you're having an issue with it not working on your phone when using the phone adapter, the software might be using the 1x camera to check for the lighting condition. Of course, the 1x camera is covered up while using the 2x in the adapter. The picture is either black or will appear intermittently. This is really unfortunate since the spotting scope image would be 2 times magnified optically. Digiscoping. Once you open the camera software on your phone, you will be presented with a screen that looks something like this, with mode options, camera controls, and configuration settings. This tutorial was shot on a Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus, an Android phone. It's best to shoot your pictures and videos through the scope using the best quality settings. My picture settings are for a 16:9 aspect ratio and the highest dimensions available for this phone. Videos are also set for a 16:9 aspect ratio at the 4K resolution and 30 frames per second. As always, make sure the phone has plenty of battery life and enough free storage space. Let's shoot some pictures and videos. You will need a way to activate the shutter remotely. Otherwise, if you touch the screen to take a picture, the phone will shake and might cause blurry images. An alternative is the shutter delay timer, but you might miss the action while the phone counts down when looking at wildlife. Some phones will let you activate the shutter on voice command. I prefer the Bluetooth remote. I'm starting out with the regular photo mode, which uses automatic metering for all camera settings. Regular video mode is very similar, with automatic settings. The exact way these features work will vary by phone and software, but they are common to most smartphones. Tap on the object you want the camera to focus on. Press and hold on the object to lock the focus. Moving the slider will adjust the exposure compensation, which makes the picture brighter or darker. Tapping again outside the yellow ring will cancel the focus and exposure lock. Next, we'll look at Pro mode. All camera settings can now be manually set here, although automatic options are still available. ISO adjusts the light sensitivity of the image sensor. Exposure is the length of time the shutter is open when taking a picture. Aperture is the iris-looking part of the camera that opens or closes, not only controlling light reaching the sensor, but also controls the depth of field. White balance adjusts the color temperature of the image. I'm roughly setting the exposure. Then comes focusing on the red-winged blackbird. I have focus peaking turned on, which displays green outlines around high contrast areas. The brighter the green, the greater the focus, in theory. In this case, the subject is the bird, so I want to see a sharp green outline around him. If you're focusing through the phone and can't bring the image into focus, you'll need to adjust the focus on the scope and try again on the phone. The white balance is set to automatic, which looks fine. The exposure looks good, so it's time to take a test image. After looking at the image, I decided to adjust the focus again and take another image. This one looks to be better focused. Pro Video has the same settings as Pro Photo. These settings are from the last video shot, so I will have to adjust them. The phone struggles with high contrast scenes, such as this dark colored bird with the bright vegetation at the bottom. High dynamic range is not available here in Pro mode. Recording sound. If you want to shoot video with live sound, I recommend using an external microphone. This phone has a 3.5mm analog jack, but if yours doesn't, look into a wireless mic or a USB adapter. When using the analog option, you might have to set the phone to airplane mode. The signals being transmitted by this phone causes interference if I don't enable airplane mode. You won't be able to use the Bluetooth remote, but the first few and last few seconds of the video can be edited out later. Just remember to disable airplane mode when you're finished shooting video. Regardless of the audio recording method, turn off your phone's ringer and vibrate function, or else you might record videos containing sound effects or buzzing. It's also possible to use a DSLR or mirrorless camera with a spotting scope. You'll need a T-ring and an M42 T-mount. The T-ring is specific to the camera. In this case, it's a Canon EF. Shooting pictures and videos through one of these cameras is similar to using a phone, but there is only one focusing mechanism in this case, the one in the spotting scope. On some cameras, you will only be able to use manual mode when a lens is not attached. The aperture display will read f00 or dashed lines. This is what happens when attaching a fully manual lens to the camera, with no autofocus or aperture adjustment. When switching from a smartphone to a DSLR camera on the scope, you'll notice the image is much larger and zoomed in. The DSLR sensor is much farther away from the eyepiece lens than the smartphone sensor. While shining a light down the scope, the light is concentrated and bright when the paper is close, but the light beam widens and dims as the paper moves away. On the inside of this scope, the image enters the large objective lens, goes through a focusing lens, bounces through a series of prisms, goes through lenses and the magnifier, before exiting through the eyepiece lens. The final image is also corrected or flipped by the prisms. This beam of light exiting the eyepiece lens is called the exit pupil. In this moon example, it looked like this through my phone, but when switching to a Canon 90D camera on the scope, the image became this. While keeping the shutter speed at 1/500th of a second, The ISO had to be increased from 100 to 1000 to properly expose the image. To view what a 20 to 60 times spotting scope can actually see, check out the video in the upper right corner. I'll see you there.